Where are they now? Where have these Topcoder admins gone? What have they been doing with their lives since they left Topcoder? Well, we're about to find out with our hosts, Dave Messenger and Tony Jeffs. Alongside them, they're going to have a panel of Eldridge, Javia Fernandez, and Mike Lydon. So they're going to be talking to them, what they've been doing with their lives after Topcoder. What's it like after Topcoder? We'll find out. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Nick. First of all, real excited to have everyone back. Some of my favorite people here. Little do they know that this is actually just a hoax so that we can get them to help debug some code they've left here 10 plus years ago. So we'll be starting with the online review system, and Javier, we need to, just joking. But a lot of these guys are responsible for a lot of the platform here. We'll do just another quick introduction. Mike Lydon, who you'll hopefully all remember, is sort of the father of marathon matches, the algorithms, the SRMs, the TCO as you know it. I think my back and most of the employees' backs still curse Lydon's name because we're still carrying around video walls and mixing boards from 15 years ago that are 50 plus pounds, as well as I think a laptop that is a 20-pound laptop we still have today. He also, as long as John Wheeler, our head of security, is not listening, I think half of our passwords are still Mike's original passwords for TCO systems. So we'll have to keep that one a secret. We also have Greg Eldridge, or Adam Celine from the community, who was actually a competing Topcoder member that we stole from one of our TCO finals. We conned him into joining Topcoder for several years and served basically every role under the sun at Topcoder, from a consultant to architect in the platform. It's great to have Greg back. And then Javia Fernandez, as you know, was our very first admin running the development, all the development competitions. And he himself was an original developer review board member and helped kind of define and push the developer process. So, and Tony doesn't need any introduction.
I'm just here to hang out. I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah. So I know maybe we'll start with just a round to get a little bit hearing what they've been up to and where they are now. I do know, I think, Greg, you're still in Seattle. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. I'm in Seattle. I'm working on HBO Max, the video platform, and yeah, having fun.
And Greg, you were just recently at Amazon, right? Before that?
Yeah. I essentially went from Topcoder to Amazon and was at Amazon for quite a few years. Worked on the Amazon mobile shopping platform and the Amazon Go cashierless checkout system, and then not too long ago switched over to HBO to work on the HBO Max launch, which happened this May, and we're keeping moving forward from there.
Yeah, and if anyone has any complaints about the ending of Game of Thrones, you can feel free to send them my way as well, and we will redirect those to Greg. He can handle all complaints around that as well.
I'm happy to handle those.
Yeah, speaking of TV shows, Javier, do you want to fill us in on where you are now?
Yeah, hi. So for the last 4 years, I've been at a different video streaming platform, Netflix.
Boo.
So here I am in California, and it's been a lot of fun. Before that, I spent a whole bunch of time working as an independent contractor, and then for a little while in a couple of different corporate jobs. But really enjoying the independent contributor role that I went to. It's I did the inverted career path. I started off as a manager, and then I went to an IC role instead of, I guess, going the other way around. But it's fit me really well.
Great. And are you still responsible for the play button at Netflix, if I remember that correctly?
Yeah, you can say that. Well, it's still more complex than that. But what options you get when you press play, and what kind of streams we select for you, and what languages we present as options and things like that, all those go through my system.
Awesome. And then our last person is we were in the technology hotbed of the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, then down to the hotbed of San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and then probably to the greatest hotbed of technology, the greater Hartford area where I am located, as well as Mr. Mike Lydon. Mike, before he goes, just to give you, Mike really is the guy that pushed a lot of the SRMs, the platform, the arena. Today, we're actually hosting a rookie SRM with prizes. So if you've never competed before in an SRM, definitely go check that out now. It's a great way to get exposure to the platform. So, Mike, what have you been up to?
So after I left Topcoder, I took some time off, a little decompression time. It was blood, sweat, and tears at Topcoder, and it was good to have a little time off and figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And I stayed in the startup space for about 3 years, working in biotechnology, leveraging my background with the algorithms that, the type of stuff that we had been working on at Topcoder. In fact, in both cases, we were looking to probably try to leverage Topcoder, but, as we know, in the startup space, the odds are against you, and neither of those really panned out. And so about 4 years ago, I joined up with a small consulting company in Virginia called CLD Partners. Dave, you might have heard of that. And so what they do is they work in the Salesforce space. We partner with a company called Financial Force, which is essentially ERP on top of the Salesforce platform. And CLD has a lot of smart people, and a lot of the people that work at CLD I've worked with in previous lives, long time ago, like straight out of college. And so it's been really nice working at that company with people that I hadn't seen in many years. And I got to tell you, it's been great. I've been having a blast.
Thanks, Mike. I think we might have been losing you a little bit there, or maybe it was me. Okay.
I think it was you, Dave. Yeah, that came through fine. And Mike, you go all the way back to the very beginning of Topcoder, right?
I do, yes. So I was part of the founding team at Topcoder, and so it was. I got to see Topcoder grow up, and I have to tell you, looking at the website now and a lot of the different competition formats and the look of the website and all of that, things have changed, and looks like for the most part changed for the better. And it's great to see the progression and continued progression of Topcoder, one of those startup companies that defied the odds. And so kudos to all of you for keeping this alive.
Kudos to you for planting all the right seeds. But so take us back to the beginning, though. So for some people that weren't there to experience it, what was the first version of Topcoder?
So when I first started at Topcoder, we were bootstrapping. So I led a team of kind of developers and infrastructure folks that built the first website and the first version of the arena hosting single round matches, although at the very beginning it wasn't called single round matches because our intent was to be entirely tournament based. And so it was a platform to support competitive tournament structures. And the first tournaments that we ran were high school tournaments local to Connecticut, just to kind of start testing the platform out. And then we branched out to nationwide, and we held our first major tournament called the Topcoder Collegiate Challenge. And this was a pretty neat one because it was significant prize money. In fact, I remember one of our first members, his handle was Qubits. He ended up winning, I think, $100,000 as a grand prize in that first tournament that we ever held. But then we realized that we needed to do something other than hold a couple of tournaments a year. And so we came up with the concept of the single round match. That's where that came from. Rather than a tournament, it's single rounds of competition. And that helped us build the rating system and build the statistics. A lot of the things that, kept the competitors excited about competing in the competitions. And then the platform kind of branched out. We, through feedback from the members, realized that we needed a different competition format, one that was more of an optimization competition, more of a long-term competition, which we called the marathon match format. And so we built that out. And concurrently with that, I think that's when Greg and Tony and Javier started building out some of the other competition formats for design and development and Topcoder Studio. I'm not sure if the nomenclature that I'm using is still what's used nowadays, so I apologize. But yeah, so that was the beginning of Topcoder. It didn't include a lot of the full lifecycle software development that's in place now. It was really mainly focused on algorithms and identifying really smart people. And so that's where we started with Topcoder.
Yeah, and I think 2004, 2005 is when the development stuff really started to come into full swing there.
Yeah, and people may not know that, but Qubits, who won the first tournament, also is the father of the rating algorithm. In fact, the code that runs in production is still called rating qubits.java, I believe.
I never realized that was named for that reason.
Yes, that was the first time that we used a member to help us build something, and he did it very well. And I think that's what set off the light bulb in everybody's mind that maybe we don't have the best people for the job, and we should just be supporting an infrastructure that finds the best people for the job and start having our members help us out. So in my realm, it was members helping us write the problems, which was a huge help because, as smart as I am, I'm not nearly as smart as the people that Topcoder attracted. And so that's when we really started getting members involved in helping us build out our own infrastructure.
Yeah, in fact, speaking of smart people we found through the platform, I think, Greg, were you still in college when you made the development finals? And what year was that? That was like 2000 and...
Yeah, it must have been 2003, 2004, somewhere in there, yeah.
We were still in, we were at the casino, I think, in Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I think that was one of the early casino finals. I still remember them fondly. I wish every TCO was still in Vegas or wherever, whenever we can get back together in person.
I'm with you, Greg.
Yeah. But basically, the single round matches that Mike was just describing were what attracted me initially. I think I saw an ad in the back of Dr. Dobbs' journal or something that was like, hey, win money for competing in algorithm competitions. I'm like, I do that in college for free. And so that's what hooked me. And yeah, I started in the algorithms and I was never quite as strong in algorithms as a lot of the competition there. So I sort of hit my ceiling at I think a yellow rating. And then around that same time, the development competitions took off and I started working on that as a member, and that was a lot of fun. And then I think we first went to components and had a big component library, and then by the time I joined full time, it was sort of saying like, okay, how do we take these components and turn them into a software development lifecycle? And that was sort of a big part of where I started contributing as an employee rather than a member.
And then Javier, you jumped in at that point too, at sometime around then too, right? As a component manager, but came originally from the community?
Yeah, correct. So I think I had a similar origin story as Greg. I had a friend in college who told me we were doing ACM style programming competitions at the time, something I really enjoyed. And he's like, there's this place where you can get paid for doing algorithms. This is back when we, I don't know if you do this again now, but back then, you would get prize money for winning individual SRMs or even for placing on the top 3 in your room. So it was pretty sweet. It wasn't a lot, but in college, it felt like a lot to me. So we're just doing SRMs every chance we got. Waking up, I think that was also back when they were all pretty U.S. time zone friendly. So we could just do all of them without waking up in the middle of the night. So that's how I started. And then sometime after that, I also hit a wall at around yellow rating. And design competition started coming out, and I got really interested in doing design reviews. And then I went, even though I actually never competed in a design competition, I ended up judging a final. And I think it was the same final that you were at, Greg. It was at Mohegan Sun. And that was great, super great experience. I had a lot of fun. And shortly after, I was almost done with my master's in computer science, and I got a text message from George Tipolitis saying, "Hey, do you want to work for Topcoder?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I couldn't believe it, right? So that was the start of it. Started doing component management. Back then, we were doing, I want to say, 2 a week, or at least 2 at a time. 2 designs, 2 developments, and there was no architecture track. So at the time, we were building individual components, and I believe we were just selling a component library, so that a company that wanted to use our stuff would just be entirely on their own on how we would put it together, how they would build solutions using our components. And so the 2 things I remember being a big part of is, one of them, we eventually developed that into a more fleshed out product where we would actually build a whole solution for a customer, instead of just presenting them with modular components that they would integrate on their own. And the other thing was building the the system for grading and submitting solutions and whatnot for the whole software track. Back when I started, the entire review process was basically a Word document, I think. It's something along those lines. You basically were fill out.
I think you used to hand out documents to reviewers and manually track them.
Pretty much, that's how it was. In fact, during my first few months at Topcoder, one of the jobs I had was basically just aggregating everybody's reviews into a single document, something that would not scale at all. And so one of the challenges was, how do we grow beyond the 2 components at a time scale when it was so labor intensive that it was just not going to work. So we built the system where we could actually scale it to the amount of concurrent work that was needed in order to do things like build an entire architecture for a customer, a complex system, not something really trivial like just give me a thing that capitalizes words or whatever we're doing for small components initially.
Yeah, the whole story of how we worked at that point, to my memory, was always like, how do I put myself out of a job? Like, right now I have this job doing stuff that I probably shouldn't even be doing. How do I build a system to like replace myself? And then we just did that over and over until we had a software process.
I think we still do that. We're just at a different point in the evolution.
Right.
But yeah, that was definitely always ingrained in everything. And Javier, just to your credit too, a lot of the systems and processes that you were thinking about and creating at that point are still a lot of the basic underlying principles of what we have today. So our development track still runs on a lot of those same core principles in terms of review and integrity and the way that things flow through the system on an individual challenge by challenge basis.
That's awesome to hear. Like in software, not every system you build lasts for very long. Sometimes you build something that sticks around for quite a while because it works, and some other stuff you build and it gets replaced because it doesn't. So it's always good to hear the successes.
And that was also one of the things that I really sort of value as sort of a memory or the thing in my career, that you don't always have a business environment where you can sort of have principled development and develop according to what you believe are the right way to do things, or that you think is a fair way to do things. And having a business that was built on a community where you were accountable to that community, and you like I personally, I'm pretty sure Javier as well, felt a responsibility to treat that community fairly and do the right thing for that community. Is really I really valued Topcoder sort of also having those values. It was really an ingrained sort of commitment to the community that, even when we were working with other corporate enterprises, like you didn't always see that as you go through the industry or through other companies. So I've always really sort of treasured that sort of, and I think that's part of why it's persisted, is that, what we were trying to do wasn't just like throw together some software that would work or that was whatever the current client demanded. It was really trying to come up with a system that worked as a principle and as sort of a general product.
Yeah, so integrity has always been a word that we've used a lot, or when I was at Topcoder from the very beginning, because we knew we had to build trust. And I'm talking from the algorithm side. We knew that if we had a system that people didn't believe in, they didn't believe in the results or the format, or they felt it was skewed or unfair, then, especially the developer community, their skepticism would outweigh their desire to want to compete. And so we always had discussions about how do we make this fair? How do we make it so that nobody can game the system and people don't feel that that somebody else has an unfair advantage? And I think that's always been ingrained in the values at Topcoder.
Yeah, I concur. One of the things that was pretty clear was that always the big asset, I don't know if we want to call it capital, or essentially what made Topcoder valuable was the community, and that was paramount. So sometimes you would have a discussion, okay, we have this really tight schedule, but we have this process. And respecting, sometimes we would, can remember many times, especially at the beginning when we were trying to get the process to be more streamlined and more efficient, we would run into situations where we would just ask ourselves, look, we got this deadline that we committed to, but at the same time, the only way to respect the process integrity is, for example, to just have a rerun the contest or give the contest enough time to go through and to finish correctly. And we would remember, like, the choice would be like, well, once you got back to first principles and you realize what made Topcoder important, you would realize that there was only one right solution, which is let the process continue correctly and figure out how to also deliver on time and do the other things that we also needed to do in order to be to actually please our customers as well. But it's a good balance, but I always felt like we had the support and the commitment to resolve those conflicts in the right way. It was great.
I'm curious, in your current day jobs, any advice as like former members that were competed in Topcoder are now working in other spots, like things you could bring with you?
Is Dave talking?
Nope.
Yeah, you can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
His question. I'll try to summarize the question to all three of you. Anybody who wants to jump in. But are there things that you learned or gained at Topcoder, whether it's experiences or skills or whatever it might be, that you find yourself using in your current day career or current day lives?
I can go first. So this isn't such a thing right now. It's been a long time. I kind of matured along the way, but at least for the first few years after Topcoder, I think it really helped me to. And this might not be something that's visible to the member base, but it's something as a Topcoder employee that I always felt like we had a really strong commitment to doing the right thing, and that went all the way to the top at Topcoder. Like, I didn't have to worry about, like, if I thought, if I had a strong opinion about something and I was able to back it up with facts or with reasoning, I didn't really feel like there was anybody in management or anybody I reported to that I couldn't go and sit down and have that conversation with. And so ever since at other jobs, I've never really been worried about that. Even in places where that might not have been the custom, I've kind of been the guy since then that would always, I don't know if you would call it bailing the cat or whatever, but like just notice that there's an elephant in the room, a problem we're not addressing, or a situation that we're not handling well, and just bring it up and do it. And at Topcoder, that just felt like the only way to do it. That was our normal MO was, okay, here's a problem, let's face it, let's address it, let's not ignore it. So that's helped me a lot. Now, I don't know if that's useful for general member base, because it is kind of a very Topcoder employee specific thing, but it is what I retained.
Although I like to think, or I hope, the community feels the same way too, with us in general, where we're always looking for their ideas and inputs, and always have an open door policy for people to speak up. And whether it's an idea or a complaint, we're always trying to listen as much as possible. Hey, Mike, anything on your mind on that one?
Yeah. So, Tony, would you mind just quickly repeating the question? I saw you talking, but I couldn't hear the audio.
Yeah. So Messa's original question was if there's anything that you learned or gained out of Topcoder that you find yourself using in either your career today or kind of in your course since Topcoder.
Yeah. Well, the first thing was being humbled, which Topcoder is a tremendously humbling experience because of the sheer talent of the member community. And so I think coming to the realization earlier rather than later in your career that you should just figure out a way to surround yourself with smart people and good things will happen. That was probably my number one takeaway from working at Topcoder. And then just a passion for crowdsourcing in general. I mean, Topcoder, I think, was probably one of the first companies that really figured out a way to make crowdsourcing work in the software field. And, I'm always interested in trying to figure out ways to leverage crowdsourced software / algorithmic development in any way possible. And I go to Topcoder's website frequently to see what types of marathon match type competitions are running. And I just think that's fascinating. And so that stuck with me as well.
Are you secretly competing under another handle?
I'm not. I don't think I would make a good competitor. That's why I surround myself with smarter people.
So it looks like we lost Greg. Hopefully we'll get him back soon here. I guess Javia and Lydon, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you did behind the scenes at the Topcoder Opens. Is it a little less stressful being able to watch it versus having to run one these days? And hopefully Mike can hear me.
They were, if you want
Go ahead,
to
Javia.
question. Okay. To me, Topcoder Opens were, it's a tremendous amount of work at the on-sites. That's the only kind we ran back then. And, but it's a tremendous amount of setup. And then you would have at least for me, I would have a day when people were just doing their competition, and it's fairly long format. It's not like an algorithm SRM. So I would have that one quiet day, and then there would be a night of total terror because we usually had to score and review all the submissions really, and there was usually a tight timeline that we always barely didn't make because we had to get to the awards. So that's all I remember is many stressful, hopeful, this time we're going to get it all done. We have all our ducks in a row. We're going to totally finish on time. And then every single time it would be just barely making all the reviews on time to award the thing. So I guess that's the algorithm probably had it inverted because all their stress was during the competition, and then afterwards, the scoring was automatic. In our case, it was the other way around. All the stress came after the submissions. I'm kind of glad not to have to go through that anymore. Sleep better. That's somebody else's job.
Javier, we were thinking about you this year, and we actually ran our first dev finals with an automated scoring system.
Whoa, really? Just have a test suite?
Yep. So similar to the SRM format, so competitors were able to submit in real time, have the test suite run against them in real time, give feedback on how many tests they passed, see the logs from their runs, and then keep iterating to improve them.
How did that work?
It went well. It turned out very well.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I wonder why we never did that before. I think so. We used to score in things like code clarity and documentation and stuff like that. Do you still do that? Because they're more subjective.
No, it was typically we've been doing the scorecard reviews for most of the challenges, but then so now this is the first one where I think the team built Tyco test suites, test cases that automatically run against them, so we can essentially fill a repo with test cases within a certain framework and structure, and then connect the challenge to it, and then automatically we've got some processors behind the scenes that picks up the submissions and understands which test suite to bounce it against.
Cool.
And then downstream from that, there's some automated scoring systems and different pluggable scoring formulas. So we're getting more advanced.
Yeah.
How about QA? Do you know how that is shaping up? That's a little different too. We introduced QA as a TCO track, I think last year.
Yeah, last year was the first QA finals during TCO, and I think the track's been running for probably about 2 years, maybe 3 years informally. But yeah, we formalized that, so that's another new competition that you guys probably haven't seen at TCO, where we've got competitors doing combination of regression testing and bug hunts live. Mm-hmm. So they're actually submitting in real time too, and their work shows up on a real-time leaderboard. And then there's a bit of a challenge phase built into that as well, which was borrowed off of the SRM format, like where competitors can challenge the bugs that were logged. So if I think that you logged an invalid bug, I can actually challenge it and try to steal some points back.
And that'll be on Friday's show. That'll be a late one for us, but I guess for the competitors it'll be at a normal hour. I think it's 2 a.m. Topcoder time.
That could be. I might log in to take a look at that, because I remember from algorithms, the challenge phase is often, usually was the one fun part to watch, was the challenge, when just seeing, every once in a while you get lucky and people just get destroyed by a single really good challenge. Oh, yeah. There's a couple legendary SRM and or the TCO moments related to challenges.
Yeah, I just remember the stress of watching the scoreboard and waiting for it to freeze. I mean, during those tournaments, I was pacing back and forth the entire time. They probably took 10 years off of my life collectively.
Oh, Mike, nothing has changed.
you should talk to Harshit. He's probably sitting there he was doing the exact same thing about an hour ago.
There he is. Okay. Hi.
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, Mike, things haven't changed too much.
And I recommend not getting Comcast residential internet. So, there you go.
Anti-plug.
I think if there's one thing Javier and I can agree on in the streaming wars, it's don't patronize Comcast.
Yeah, or if you live where I live, there's really no other option.
Yeah, same here.
But everybody is.
I was going to say, Greg, you shouldn't be streaming on Netflix. That's what ruins your internet.
Oh, I've heard that.
Mike, I think you still can't hear me, but we still have our don't touch the sound panel board. Still makes it from TCO to TCO. That was without talking to Mike first. It's a heirloom that we still utilize.
Actually, Jesse told me it's a replica. It's not the original. Because I saw a picture of it on Twitter, like last year, I think it was. I was like, oh my God, he still kept it. And she told me that it's being replicated. It's not the original. Is that true?
I don't know. I know it was on a piece of cardboard that usually ends up in one of the many boxes that we fall from year after year.
Do you still have the big brackets? We had a lot of fun with those brackets.
I think they're in Jesse's
Yep.
garage or in,
Oh,
in a
goodness.
storage unit someplace. They were up last year, I think, though, in Houston.
I am amazed that we
Yeah,
still
we
have
use the
all the
brackets.
pieces that that the things are still structurally sound, because it felt like every year we would have less pieces, but it would still work.
There are still some Home Depot runs each
Uh,
year to go find pieces and things like that. Another question. So I know, Greg, your answer is probably Vegas, but anyone have a favorite TCO they attended?
I can just chime in on that mess. You might think my answer is Vegas, and you would be completely correct. My favorite TCO was probably at the Mirage, followed by the next one I did at the Mirage, followed by any other one we did at the Mirage. I was a huge fan of the Mirage and Vegas. I loved it. I still love going to Vegas on my own dime, but it was much better when it was from Topcoder.
Mike, how about you? Favorite TCO?
Oh, my favorite TCO was I don't remember which year it was, but it was the one that was held. Was it either San Diego or Santa Clara? It was the one where we had professional personality from ESPN.
Oh,
And that just the immense production that was put on, and how we had a satellite truck that was outside the building that was beaming the signal over to ESPN studios or whatever, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. That totally legitimized competitive programming for me.
Yeah, I remember that one came out really well. I think it was Jeremy Schaap who was the
Jeremy Schaap,
the sports
right.
commentator, and he was impressive too. He carried the show really, really well.
He did his research. He did a lot of research.
Yeah. I was actually surprised at how he was just sitting there with a couple of other like algorithm people. I'm pretty sure it was like Snapdragon and John Deathridge, or I'm pretty sure it was them. And he was just talking like he belonged. It was pretty amazing. I had forgotten about that TCO. That was a good one. I really liked the first Vegas one, but for a totally selfish reason, which is after that I went to Red Rocks. I went climbing. It's the only time actually I was able to do that. Because usually those trips were all work, and I was so beat at the end of them that it was just go home and sleep. It was the only thing I wanted to do. So in fact, that was pretty much my entire Vegas experience was sleeping. I think I played poker for about 10 minutes in 5 trips. So I should go to Vegas for fun someday. I hear it's nice.
Are you still going on your crazy climbing trips?
I took there's a bit of a hiatus when I had my son initially, and then a couple more kids. I took a break from climbing, but now that I live in California, I've been climbing a lot. I picked up skiing. It's a really good state to go outdoors, to be outdoors in.
Javier, we also were talking the other day about one of the secret behind the scenes contests we used to run back at the Topcoder Opens, and the one that you participated in, and just it was how many In-N-Out burgers could you eat in a single?
I knew that was coming.
I can't remember how many it was, but I want to say it was like 14 patties or something of that nature. But
No. It was 13. So there's a background to this. Shortly after I joined, Greg Paul asked me, like he bet me like $20 that I couldn't eat at Franklin Giant Grinder. Franklin Giant Grinders are these sandwiches in the Hartford area that are about like this big. It was a chicken parm, full one. It's the kind of sandwich that people get a half, and then they'll eat half of that and take the other half home for dinner. So I was bet that I couldn't eat a whole one in an hour, which I ate no problem. I used to eat a lot. So that was not a big problem. And then somebody had the brilliant idea to do this thing where we would all get 10 by 10s at In-N-Out Burger, and everybody would eat it. 10 by 10s are a sandwich with 10 patties and 10 cheese. It's off the menu, but if you go to In-N-Out Burger, you can get it. And so we had 10 by 10s, and I was the only one who finished it. And the following year, I'm like, well, let's do 11 by 11s. And nobody took me up on it. So I decided to go for a 13 by 13 to just basically pad my record and make sure nobody beat me in subsequent years so I could retire undefeated champion. And I did. If you're interested in following my footsteps, my main recommendation is eat the fries too, because the thing is so greasy that like you end up with this queasy feeling in your mouth, but the fries are really dry. So if you eat some fries, they'll kind of like freshen your mouth and you can eat the rest of the burger more easily.
I'd like to step in and say nobody should do that. I like that recommendation. Do not follow in his footsteps. Do not do that.
That was one of
I was
those.
going to say, I think I remember the hotel one that charged us extra for like a giant stain from the grease that came off Javia's. It was like a pool of liquid or something. So.
That could be true. I don't remember.
Hey, Mike, were you jumping in there?
I was just going to say the in and out tradition at the TCOs, where that was one that I never participated in. I don't think it would make me feel very good. So, but I would watch Javier and all the other guys eat their whatevers by whatever, and it was something to see. I'll tell you that.
I love Javier's passion around food.
You guys also might, on a Topcoder note, we did add 2 new tournaments. So the design tournament's actually head-to-head brackets now, where they have like short time and they have to add features or do something, and that's head-to-head. What's happening with those? The other one the other tournament that we're having now is last year at the TCO, the members started a one-on-one SRM style tournament. So we're running some of those this year too for fun. So we're definitely trying, not only do we have some competition in the backgrounds, but we're trying to run more different style tournaments. The other kind of interesting tournament you guys might like is we do regionals now in person. So we try to go to different countries and do different in-person regional events.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds like, it's one of the, sort of more exciting things, and one of the reasons that I outside of being in Vegas, I'll put that aside for the moment if I can. It's really great to sort of see these people in person that you would interact with throughout the year. And so I can only imagine regionals it'd be even more fun because you might actually have a chance to, see these people day to day, or, it'd be a lot easier to sort of meet new people and hang out with people, not only just sort of online and in the arena and in the course of working directly in the community, but also having a chance to meet them and hang out with them sort of outside of it. I always really enjoyed that aspect of the finals.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially these people that you spent so much time online with that you've never really met. You're not really sure what they're like. And, a couple times a year you get to actually see the person behind the handle. And I thought that was really neat. Yeah, I agree, Greg.
Yeah, it was always one of those things where it was a lot of times it'd be surprising, or a lot of times it'd be sort of, that's not what I expected. And I would say the one exception to that was the Ukrainians. Every Ukrainian I met was just as frightening in person as they were online. Pavel, if you're out there, I'm still afraid of you. I don't know where you are. Hopefully you're doing well.
I don't know how to top that one, Greg.
Sorry. Killed the panel. My bad.
Yeah, I've met a couple of people I met through Topcoder. I've kind of semi-kept in touch with. Usually, it's mostly the Argentinian crew, which is where I grew up. So a couple of them ended up here in Silicon Valley, so I've met them a couple of times and stuff. It's great. I mean, it's a really great place to start from because you're all interested in the same thing. So it's like we would sit down and instantly the conversations would be pretty much compatible for everybody at the table, which is quite rare, especially when you get a bunch of people from different origins and interests. You had stuff to talk about. You could talk about algorithms, you could talk about software design, you could talk about whatever. So it's really great.
And it was
we actually have a.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, like, that was one of the other sort of cool things that sort of happened for me. Like, even with people I didn't really stay in touch with directly, I would find, years later, just sort of running into them in other contexts, like, especially at Amazon. Amazon is a huge company, but every once, like, I would see people like who join the company and be like, oh, wait a minute, Rutunsky, like, Eugene, like, I know him. And, we met up for lunch, and like, it was really cool. Like, just, the connections that I made in Topcoder, like, have popped up again and again sort of later in my life. It's been, rewarding, I think, even after.
Yeah, I had a totally random. Oh, sorry, miss. Good. Sure. I had this random moment. So I got asked by my my old algorithms professor in college if I could write. I used to write problems for ACM contests. So I wrote a problem for the regionals a few years ago for the Pacific Northwest regionals. And when I send it in, I get this email. I get invited to this email of the group of people discussing the problem set, and the guy in charge of it was Red Eye, and he said he liked my problem, and I was like, yes! It was like proudest moment. It's like, I can't believe you like my problem, and it made it into a set, and I don't think it was a little random meeting Topcoder person, and also like, oh my god, I can't believe a guy with a rating infinite times mine likes my problem.
Yeah, that's still one of the things that I almost miss about Topcoder in like the real world. Like, having the rating system sort of like in my mind, I don't know if it's because I came up with it so early in my career or whatever, but I feel like it proves that you're smart. Like, I like having sort of like a little banner over people's head that's like, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with him. Like, if he says it's right, I'm just gonna, like, it's cool. Like, in the real world, you don't have that. You have to, like, actually interrogate people to like figure out whether they're right or wrong. But like the Topcoder rating system, I never found an example of someone who was like really super highly rated who wasn't really super highly smart. And I sort of missed that in my day-to-day life.
I remember sitting at a table, one of the TCOs, and I got, we had this system. We went out for dinner, and we had like an admin or two per table and a bunch of competitors and stuff. I ended up sitting with a bunch of reds. It's usually who you would get at these TCOs, and they started talking about Tetris. I'm like, cool, I've played Tetris. Oh, no. You don't want to get into that conversation, because it turns out Tetris has, a system. If you actually, know how to play, not like me. I just put the shapes and hope for it. But hearing all these weird like rules and inner combinations of things that allow you to actually score, get a high score in it, I'm like, yeah, no, it's not just algorithms that I cannot keep up with these people on. Like, there's like no category of thing that I can hang out with, unless if we're playing like what was it, Guitar Hero? I could hang on Guitar Hero. That's about it. Anything remotely mathematical, I was so out of my depth.
I'm sure if you took half of them up a mountain, they would be crying and begging you for help. So
yeah,
you've got that going.
I got to level the playing field somehow.
You'll have to tune in tomorrow, Javier. We're doing a session with Where Are They Now some members. So I know Snapdragon is one of them, and he was a perfect doc champion. I think a Dance Dance Revolution champion. Yeah. So I remember that at some early TCOs as well. So we got a few other members like Pilo, Snapdragon, and Tomek are all joining us for a Where Are They Now member side tomorrow.
Yeah. Snapdragon used to, I recall he was a really avid video gamer. He used to have like perfect scores on all the initial Xbox games. Like, he was just collecting hundreds on the things. He was serious, really good.
Yeah, and it's great to see, just some other admins, a lot of the old Topcoder admins, like, you mentioned Amazon, like GT494, George Zippolitis is there. I just saw his name in a press release for being the GM of the Amazon video game streaming service. I guess he's not man enough to go into the streaming wars with YouTube, but
No,
for
he's
the
cutting edge.
movies. But it's great to see a lot of the other admins. You know, Mike's working with some of them at his company, and just see a bunch around still doing really cool things.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things about Topcoder, actually, that I haven't had as much. Like I've still worked on a lot of cool things and I've done cool things, but one of the cool things with Topcoder that I really treasured is sort of seeing a new, different, cool thing every 3 months or 6 months. Like I really, I'm glad that I sort of did that early in my career and was able to sort of see a bunch of different industries and see a bunch of different, like, looking at it from the perspective of, even though I wasn't a member anymore, I was still working with the customers who were coming to the community. So, it's a very different thing to be able to say, like, okay, I'm going to work in the insurance industry this day, and I'm going to work in the high tech industry this day, and I'm going to work in the medical industry this day, and I'm going to work in the being exposed to all those different businesses and industries is a really great thing that in a more traditional sort of career you don't do. Like I was at Amazon, and I was in essentially retail to customers for 5 years, and then I was actually 8. Like the whole time I was there, I was basically doing retail, and now I'm only doing streaming. I don't do anything else. Like I don't like that's my life and my business, and that can be fun. But I also really like the variety and sort of the opportunity that you got to see a bunch of different businesses as part of Topcoder. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that you give us some credit for something new every 3 months. Considering that this is our 20th year of the Topcoder Open.
Wow.
Mike, you've been here all 20. You were back when the very first one as well. What do you think? I mean, I'd be curious to hear. Is this where you think the Topcoder Open would be? And then also, like, what do you think? What do you wish you had seen in the Topcoder Open?
Oh, well, this year I think is a bit different because it's remote, right? But I enjoyed seeing the Topcoder Open get bigger and bigger every year, and I know at one point we were aspiring to essentially partner with or become our own trade show, where the headline event would be the Topcoder competitions, where we could showcase some of the best developers in the world. And so I don't know what the recent Topcoder Opens have been like, but that's something that I always had wished had come to fruition by the time that I had left Topcoder.
Yeah, that's actually that's what we're trying to do with, we call it Upriser, which is more of like focused on the future of work. This was actually supposed to be our first year of the big Upriser conference with the Topcoder Open at Upriser. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, there's been Corona's thrown a little hitch in that.
Yeah.
Those plans.
That would be really fantastic. I would love to see that happen. Hopefully next year.
And one of the goals there too, Mike, was to have a conference or have another platform hold a competition there as well. So it wouldn't be just the Topcoder platform holding competitions. But I think one of the things that, Greg, you were talking about when you said you got to work in different industries, I think one of the highlights myself of TCO, of all the ones we've done last year, we had a member customer panel. And it was just really cool to see the customers and clients interact. So that was the other goal of Upriser too, was really to kind of pull clients and members closer together and other people involved around the future of work and how people are working in the future.
And we used to do something.
I was just going to toss it your way anyways, Javier, so go right ahead.
I was saying that we used to do something not quite the same, but similar in the sense that Topcoder Open sponsors would usually send representatives, and there would be a lot of interaction between them and or not member base, maybe not in the form of a specific panel, but there was definitely a lot of conversations and stuff. And that reminds me, like, I think some of my favorite memories of talking with sponsors is the conversations with the NSA folks. There was one time where they brought in an Enigma machine to the TCO, and that was pretty awesome. Just actually getting to play with it and whatnot, and then hearing the story about how hard it was to get it through airport security. Apparently not. That was not that long after 9/11, just a few years after, and the guy was trying to get this thing that he couldn't X-ray through the airport security. Yeah,
I think they had to go through a lot of hoops to get that out of the building too.
yeah, because it was I think it was either the only operational machine or the one of two. It was so just getting the museum curator to let them take it out was a challenge.
That was actually we did a 20-year anniversary where we went through them all. So that was actually one of my most heart-wrenching moments at TCO. I remember a piece got removed from the Enigma machine, if you remember that.
Oh, that's right. That turned into a big thing.
Yeah, because to Javier's point, I think there was only 2 or 3 working machines, and we managed to lose a piece of the Enigma machine. But after 36 hours or so, we were able to find it and put it all back together, and it was all. But if you want to talk about adding more heart-wrenching aspects to TCO,
we put it together as best as we could. There was still a few screws that we didn't know where to.
So extra parts, right?
So kind of like the brackets.
Yeah, now it only decodes things in Pig Latin, but other than that, it works pretty well.
I had completely forgotten that part. It's like I blanked all the negatives out.
Yeah.
You know.
Greg, anything you think you'd love to have seen or surprises you in the?
It sounds like you're still, one of my favorite things about TCO is it always seemed to evolve every year, and we always seem to be doing sort of new or more interesting things, either to, try to engage the community or trying to bring new people to the TCO who might not have had a chance to go otherwise. That was really my favorite thing, was just trying to, expand the depth of how we connected with the community at the TCO. And it sounds like you guys are still doing that, still trying new formats, still, sort of, keeping it fresh, both for the sake of, the attendees who aren't competing, like making it interesting for them and making it worth sort of, visiting and being part of, but also making it interesting and fresh for the competitors, which I think is really important because, nobody wants, well, speaking for myself, I'm not thrilled seeing LeBron just sort of dominate everything every year in exactly the same way. I like seeing other competitions, other people get to show their talents, that kind of thing. And so I always felt like that was a strong point for the TCO. Sure, like in the algorithm competitions, maybe, every year we'd have a few sort of likely winners or people who go, but even with that community, it seemed like there was a fair amount of turnover, and you'd always see like, oh wow, this new guy is like just destroying it, and he'd come through, and things like introducing marathon matches. Like I remember like that was like totally different skill set, a totally different sort of format, and it was really exciting. So yeah.
Cool. We actually have our first audience question from someone named Michael Morris, and he would like to know, Mike, what you think, since you were so involved in the marathon matches and algorithms. Last year we had our first double winner with someone taking home the title in both the SRM and the marathons in the same year, and that was Tourist.
Tourist did it? Oh my. Wow. We often talked about whether it was even possible, just whether you could have both skill sets to be able to take the title in both. That is amazing.
Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment. It's literally what I just said I didn't think would happen. So it's great that it happened.
We back in the day, even just holding red on more than one category was very rare. I can't remember there's this guy who then came to work for us at Topcoder that had red in all three. I'm pretty sure he was red in design, algorithms, and
Was it TC or Wishing Bone? Someone like that?
Wishing Bone.
Jiaji Wu. who was
And I
read
think
in
for
all.
years he was the only person who was like read in multiple categories. It was so hard. Just to, yeah. Also, I think many people, just to be fair, I think from talking to algorithm competitors, it's hard to find somebody who's interested in both tracks. So I don't know how many people were actually trying to make it to get that title, but yeah, we should have made a special color for that. So some gamified it.
Well, I know we're coming up to the end here. We just want to say thank you to all you guys for putting in the time and especially all the contributions. I mean, I can't imagine where Topcoder would be without all of your impact. Maybe from a technical debt standpoint, we'd be in a better spot without Javier and some of the.
Absolutely.
From the code perspective, not the process. The code,
from
maybe.
the code maybe. But just want to say thanks a ton. Hopefully everyone stays safe and healthy with everything going on. And any kind of parting words you'd like to give the community or anything, we get the old timer member meeting tomorrow. Any questions you'd want to ask? Here, one last shot.
I have no parting words. I just have a final question. Are you still using Informix?
We are.
I was wondering if you were going to ask that at some point.
For about 50% still in Formix. And we still talk to the only guy that's retired in Florida that knows how to work in Formix.
Have you been able to?
We've actually got a problem with some constraint violations right now in the warehouse. If you want to stay on after and help us out.
Have you been able to rename the Amoeba table, or are you still using it that way?
Some things never change, Javier.
I have actually found that typo in other code bases in other companies, and every time I just crack up. It's a very common typo, and it never gets fixed.
All right. Well, I want to thank the hosts and for having me. This has been great. It's been good to see all of you again and see what everybody's up to. And I'm glad to see Topcoder just carrying on bigger and better than ever.
Well, thanks. We'll hand it back to our fearless MC, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mess and Tony, for hosting that. Greg, Javier, Mike, really great to hear from you. I know, we never got to work together, but those were some really interesting stories. And I have to say, I feel like Topcoder really has a knack for hiring, specific types of people. I mean, just hearing from them, they just seem like really happy and very smart and just funny people. And I feel like that's the kind of vibe that we get here at Topcoder, at least the people who do work here. So it was really interesting to see that even traces all the way back to 2000. So really cool to hear from them. We're going to have a similar type show with previous Topcoder greats who might have moved on from Topcoder, and we'll see where they are. Again, if you missed what Mess was saying, that's going to be Snapdragon, Pilo, and Tomek. So we're going to have a little interview style similar to how we just had it here with them. So check in on that. Also, tomorrow is our first UI Designs final match. So you're going to be able to tune in to that. The design final starts at 8 a.m. Topcoder time. However, the live stream will go on for the last hour of it. So if you tune in around 10 a.m. tomorrow, again, that's Topcoder time, we will be live once again. So until then, hopefully get some rest if you were competing today. And if not, maybe you're in the SRM, the rookie SRM. Hopefully you're having fun there. All right. Until then, I'll be signing off as your host, Nick Castillo. See ya.